Morning everybody, so here we are back in Epping Forest, and today I've come back to test this Tannus tyre that I've just fitted. This is day 2 on the Tannus tyre, so I'm going to put it through its paces on some proper off-road riding. We'll see how it goes. So obviously I was here last week on my old tyre, on the old Marathon Tour Plus, and today I'm here on this new Tannus solid tyre, and I'm going to ride over some of the same routes and places that I did last time I was here and see how well it performs. So on yesterday's ride, the first ride that I had on this new tyre, we learned that the rolling resistance had increased, and also that the ride was very much stiffer. I could feel little tiny lumps and bumps, stones and things under the tyre as I'm riding along. It's the sort of thing that the full suspension on the Trike doesn't deal with. That deals with the big lumps and bumps, but not the little ones. So according to the online reviews and to Tannus's own literature, these tyres are going to take between 60 and 100 miles to bed in and to reach their optimum. I did around 30 miles yesterday, just over I think, and today I'm not going to do anything like that. Today is just a test of their off-road capabilities. But we'll see over the next week or two. I'll easily get over 100 miles in over the next week, and then we'll see how they're doing. But I shall keep coming back and reviewing them every now and then. Alright. So immediately apparent to me is that, as with the ride yesterday, the lockdown no longer seems to be in effect in the UK. There's lots and lots of people in the forest today, and it's quite early as well. So anybody who's been watching my channel for any length of time at all will know that off-road cycling is a very big part of my cycling experience, and last week I came along here and I used the e-assist to climb this hill that's now in front of me. It doesn't look much like a hill on the camera, I understand that, but it's one of the larger hills in Epping Forest. So this is the first time that I'm going to try and climb a hill with the new tyre, and we'll see how we get on. Let's see how long it is before it starts sliding, because I fancy it's going to. Let's see. The e-assist's on level 2 to start off. Well, there's no slipping yet. We haven't got to the steepest bit yet though. Morning. You know, I'm already pleasantly surprised. There's been no slipping at all yet. We'll have to find something steep. Well, that was surprising. It's very surprising indeed. I really thought I would get some wheel spin coming up that. It didn't even feel like it was going to start spinning. So that was quite good. As I say, going to have to find something steeper. Something with some looser gravel maybe. Well, if I come across something like that, I'll let you know. Doesn't the forest look lovely again today? Always lights up in the sunshine, doesn't it? Wonderful colours. So I'm now riding on what is somewhat bigger than pea shingle, I think. Let's have a look. There we go, that's what I'm riding on at the minute. And I can feel stones that size coming through the tyre. I dare say it's something I'll get used to, and it might be something that the tyre wears into as well. But I can definitely feel it. As I say, just takes some getting used to, I suppose. So peaceful. As you've seen, I've just come off the beaten path by quite a distance, and I've done that for a particular purpose. I did promise you all last week that I'd bring you back to Epping Forest and tell you a little bit about its history. There's no better place to start in history than right back at the beginning. So that rather normal looking bank of earth sitting over there is one part of what is called the Loughton Camp. The Loughton Camp dates back to 500 BC. So the earthworks of Loughton Camp enclose an area of several acres, and it's thought that it was built to protect the livestock of the local tribes, but possibly also as a lookout post, because it is in the highest point of the entire forest just here. So it perhaps had other reasons for being. When it was built, that earth mound over there would have been 3 metres high, and the ditch would have been 3 metres deep, and it was all built by hand. Continued to be used until the times of the Roman invasion. Much later in history, in the 18th century, it's thought that Dick Turpin may have had a hideout somewhere in the bank around Loughton Camp as well, when he went out as a highwayman and robbed the rich people using the major roads that go through the forest. But that's only one suggested site for Dick Turpin's hideout. There's 2 or 3 others in the forest. I don't actually know where they are, but so that's Loughton Camp. That's our first look at the history of Epping Forest. There's no cycling allowed in there, so I'm not going to go over there. As you can imagine, it's a protected site of ancient history, so only pedestrians allowed. So now we zoom forward in time to the 12th century, and it's thought that King Henry II, designated the whole area as a forest. Now in royal terms, a forest in those times didn't necessarily mean it was wooded, but it did mean that commoners could come in and use the forest for grazing rights and for collecting wood and doing whatever else they wanted in the forest, except hunting. Hunting was for royalty only. So as soon as the forest became open for commoners to come in and use, they used to graze their animals on areas like this inside the forest. And in order to get grass like this to grow on a forest floor, you obviously need to cut some trees down to let some light in. And that's what they did. They got rid of all the old ancient English forest, and all the old lime trees were cut down, and what we're left with today are the beech and birch trees that you see throughout. And as so often happens in the 17 and 1800s, the rich landowners around the outsides of the forest started to put up fences and closing off parts of the forest and calling it their own. And under an Act of Parliament in 1878, that stopped. What remains of the forest has been the same ever since, and the forest was handed over to the London Corporation. That's the same corporation that runs the City of London that I was talking about a couple of weeks ago when we were down there. So whilst I'm riding through the forest, you'll doubtless have seen lots of these lovely old beech trees, like this one. And the strange shape at the bottom of that is due to the pollarding that used to take place on pretty much all of the trees throughout the forest. But since the Act of 1878, all pollarding has ceased. So we end up with these really thickly buttressed bottom of the tree with many branches coming out the top, and this strange ugly mass in the middle. That's had some positive and some negative effects on the forest as a whole, removing the pollarding, and I'll tell you more about that in a minute. So there we have a pretty much perfect example of an old pollarded beech tree, and as you can see it's quite seriously deformed at the bottom. But one of the effects of that pollarding means that the beech tree, rather than having, like the one next to it here, just two stems, two lovely thick healthy stems, the beech tree ends up having, I think that one's probably got close to a dozen stems coming out of it and going up, and that means it's very much weaker around that point where the pollarding took place. That lends itself to lots of downfall, such as this one over here. They snap very easily in strong winds, and they always snap off at the same point where the tree was injured originally. Now strangely, that leads to one of the benefits of that ancient pollarding, in that the forest is absolutely full of different fungi. There are more types of fungi in Epping forest than in most other woodland and forest throughout the UK, and that's all thanks to that sort of pollarding and the amount of dead wood that lands on the forest floor. In fact, just looking, I hadn't even spotted it until just now, but if I zoom in on it, you can see that one laying there has fungus all the way along it. I have absolutely no idea what sort of fungus that is, but that old dead tree laying there is absolutely covered in different types. So that's one of the advantages of the pollarding. But if I go to the other side of the path, the ban on pollarding can be seen just there, because nobody is allowed to cut the trees down in Epping forest anymore. There's no greenery on the forest floor. As you'll recall, I said earlier, the forest used to be used for grazing by the commoners. There's not much grazing in here anymore. Although the London Corporation is now testing on several sites through the forest, they're beginning to pollard again, just to see how well it allows the forest to redevelop underneath once they get rid of some of the canopy. But it comes back so quickly. I mean, you can see through here on this other side where I showed you this fallen tree, where the sunlight can get in, we've immediately got some undergrowth and some smaller trees growing through there where the sunlight is coming through the canopy. It doesn't take long. So I just stopped for a snack, and I realised I forgot to put the headrest back on the trike this morning. I think I forgot it yesterday as well. No big deal. I remove it to put the trike in the car. If I take the headrest off, then I can put the trike in the car all in one piece without folding her up. Makes it much easier for getting out and about in the mornings. I don't have to worry about setting up the stand assist bars, the chair. I must show you that one day. I'll show you the setup from the moment I leave my house to the moment we get riding. It's no big deal, but it's just a part that's missing from the story at the moment, isn't it? God, I do like being here. So different to the canal yesterday. That was so busy. This is a little bit busier in here today, but as I said before, you can always find somewhere in the forest to to be alone. I mean, I'm sitting on one of the main pathways here at the moment. There's been nobody past here in the last 10 minutes. Because I've said that, there's probably somebody coming up behind me now. No, there isn't. Thank goodness. Right, I'm going to finish my snack and then I'll make a move. A few more miles to do yet. So since I first came to Epping Forest last week, several of you have mentioned in the comments about Epping's dark history. And yeah, it's got some. We already mentioned Dick Turpin and the highwaymen who used to rob the rich people going through the forest on the main roads. But yeah, more recently than that, I think there's probably a good 15 or 20 different bodies and murders that have happened in the forest over the last 30 years. I really don't think though that you can blame Epping Forest for its proximity to a city the size of London. It's just too big a draw for the criminal fraternity to come up here and do their dastardly deeds without getting caught, to be honest. That said, I don't want to come here one day and be the poor unfortunate soul who finds the dead body that's been half buried in a small copse somewhere. That can't be very nice, can it? But yeah, Epping Forest has its dark side as well, unfortunately. So, before I forget, I'm getting a little bit behind on the comments again. So at some point this weekend, I'm going to have a day off and do nothing but answer comments on the channel. It's a bank holiday weekend this weekend, so we've got Friday, Saturday and Sunday off. So plenty of time for answering some comments. My apologies if you've been waiting for a specific answer to a question, but I will get to them in the next day or two. And before we finish today, I'd just like to point out that I've been all over the forest and I've really searched for some of its steepest gravelly hills, and that new tyre on the back hasn't let me down at all. I am incredibly surprised. I really did not see that gripping on gravel and on fairly steep hills. Some of the hills in Epping Forest with the loose gravel are the steepest hills that I'm likely to try and tackle on this trike. So I am very pleasantly surprised at how well that tyre handled it, to be honest. And if, as they say, it's going to get more grippy once it's worn in over 60 to 100 miles, then yeah, I can't say I'll be having any problems with it at all. And people have been asking me how much the tyre cost from Tannus. I got it direct from Tannus website because of course we can't go into the shops to buy them at the moment. I don't even know whether they're available in stores anyhow. But Tannus are available internationally and the UK price was £60, $59.99. So yeah, it's not a cheap option and it's going to have to do quite a few miles to recover that sort of expenditure, but we'll see. To be fair, I put it on there as a test, as much for my YouTube channel as it is for my triking, and we'll just see how it goes. If it needs to come off at any time, it'll come off, believe me. But at the moment, yeah, I've got to say I really am surprised at it, in a pleasant way. Right, I reckon that's it for today then, guys. I've had a lovely time riding around in the forest again. I hope you've enjoyed coming along with me. If you did, please don't forget to hit that little thumbs up button in the bottom. Really appreciate that, thank you. going to make my way home now, and I'll see you tomorrow. Cheers then, guys. Ta-da.